Hey everyone, Joe Bowen, the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs here, inviting you to join a very special podcast, 30 Minutes Live with CDP. It's every Wednesday and Friday night on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter.
Hey everybody, it's your Brawls CDP. Thanks for watching 30 Minutes Live with 30 Minutes Live with CDP tonight. I have a special guest, Mike Hogan, the manager of communications for the Toronto Argonauts and the Argonauts radio play-by-play voice. Mike will be with us just shortly. Just give me 1 minute and I will have Mike on here. And thanks. I really appreciate Mike giving me some time of his day to come on here. So I'm going to bring Mike on here right now, guys. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just perfectly.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for giving me some time to come on tonight.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
That's great. How was your day?
It was good. I filed my taxes, so life is good. I can now move on with the rest of my year.
I just did too as well. So now I got to deal with the government on the 1 year they reassessed me, but hopefully my accountant will get that straightened out. So, but it's going to be a lot of people are going to have that probably this year as well.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot different for a lot of people. Freelance dried up, and some people were relying on the government in a lot of different instances. So, yeah, it was a tough year for a lot of people. So, to get this onward and just try to get back to normal.
I definitely agree. I just wanted to say again, I am really sorry for the loss of your friend and colleague Chris Schultz.
Yeah, I got a football card of the big guy behind me here, and yeah, it was sudden, it was sad, it was all of the things. It was something that nobody had braced themselves for, and with Schultz, I think what we learned from a lot of people was that we may have taken him for granted to the point that we didn't tell Chris how important he was to football in this country, and from the days as a player where. He went to Aldershot High School in Burlington, and nobody was getting D1 rides in the NCAA back in that era in the late 70s, and he became one of the first. And went to Arizona, got drafted by the Dallas Cowboys when Canadians just didn't get drafted in the NFL draft, and ends up starting for the Dallas Cowboys in an era where there weren't too many Canadians even considering a job in the National Football League, and then came up here and was dynamite, multiple-time All-Star, and then to make the broadcasting transition as it wasn't seamless, but it was pretty quick. And man, for a lot of people who grew up watching, Friday Night Football or even Risky Business and the NFL coverage, and Chris Schultz was omnipresent on TSN with football, and he'll be missed.
Yeah, I never got to meet Chris, but I was a huge fan of his as a player, being a longtime Argos fan. And then I thought he did a great job as TSN's TV analyst. And then the last few years with you on radio. Just very intelligent man, and he knew the game really well.
And he was passionate about it. And what I think, one of the reasons I think Chris and I clicked as well as we did, we always put the game first. The game was the most important thing. The players were there with the game as being the most important things. And the two idiots talking about it were not the main reason people were watching or listening to the game. And, I think there was that mutual respect for the game itself that allowed Chris and I to click. Chris loved players. He loved the game. He loved everything about it. I've never met anybody who could go out onto a football field and marvel at how beautiful it was for as long as he did. It'd be, golly, look at this field. And he would just beam about the condition of a football field, and loved the facility at BMO. And for him to sort of sadly close his career, but to come full circle professionally and in the CFL and be able to be a part of the team, even though it was at arm's length as a color commentator, but to get back with the Argos for the last couple of years of his life, I think meant a lot to him.
Hopefully the team will be able to, when the season starts at some point, hopefully in June, they'll be able to honor him before a game.
We'll do something. We're trying to figure out what exactly it's going to be, but we'll do something for the big man.
hopefully I'll be able to be at that game.
I hope so. I hope a lot of people will be.
Yeah, unfortunately, my last game, I was at an Argos game at BMO Field, was Ricky Ray's last game, with the home opener, the Grey Cup home opener against Calgary, and that brutal hit he took.
Yeah, and the thing that I don't think Ricky gets his due, because he was such a, still is, but I mean, when he was a player, he was such a quiet leader. Wasn't the kind of guy that was going to go out and seek to do interviews and do the talking and get the cameras on him. But I don't know how many days that I'd go over to, the guys would be over at practice. I couldn't get there for whatever reason, would just go back to the locker room to help get ready for the interviews with the media. And, Ricky would be in there with the neck brace on and, hitting the stationary bike. We'd have some tremendously good conversations during that period. But, Ricky was, as a player, as competitive as it gets. And I don't think people realize that because he was so quiet and very stoic as a leader. But there was a real competitive nature that burned in that guy. He's now running, like, not marathons, but ultra marathons. Last time I talked to him was a little over a year ago, and he was up to, like, I think 50 miles, like running 50 miles. So I can't even drive 50 miles without getting tired. But that his goal was to run an ultra, which I think is 100 miles. So it's he's competitive, and wanted to keep at his age, around, if he's not 40 now, he's knocking on the door. He wanted to be able to be competitive and take place in sports as much as he could, as long as he could.
Yeah. I was gonna say I should have done a list of 50 all-time favorite Argonauts, but I'm just gonna to my top 6, and I would say my tops. Well, Ricky Ray should be in there too, probably my top 10. But Terry Greer, Conrad Holloway, Cedric Mentor, the late Darryl K. Smith, Doug Flutie, and Pinball Clements. But I could go on to Paul Pearson, Paul Mazzotti, Don Moan. There's just this organization's had so many great players over its 100+ years.
I met Greer for the first time a couple of years ago, and I'm like you, when the Argos had that resurgence in 82, 83, I was in high school and college, and man, Terry Greer to me was just, I've said often that other than Doug Flutie in my lifetime, Terry Greer is the best Argonaut. And I met him for the first time a couple of years ago, and I would have been like mid-50s at the time, and I reverted into 18-year-old boy. Like I was just in awe of this guy, and just how good he was. It was really cool to meet him, and then subsequently to meet him again when he went into the Hall of Fame, which I wasn't going to miss for anything.
My late dad, back in 1985, was a car salesman with Guelph Toyota, and the Argos back in 85 were having their training camp at the University of Guelph. Well, he ended up selling a car to a couple Argonauts, and my dad was nice enough to get me some autographs, and one of them was Joe Barnes, Terry Greer, which was an awesome autograph. I think I still have it. And the third player, I'm still trying to think who the third player was, but just getting Terry Greer's autograph and even Joe Barnes, it was just amazing what my late dad was able to get for me then.
They might not win that Grey Cup, and probably don't if Joe Barnes doesn't come in at halftime. Conrad Holloway was the starting quarterback, one of your favorites, and he was sick that day. He had the flu, and he went the first half. Couldn't go out. They made the switch at halftime, and Joe Barnes came in, and if I'm not mistaken, he was the MVP of the 1983 Grey Cup.
Well, and it just shows you in football, even back then, you needed to have a solid backup quarterback, and to this day, you still do. And even the 87 Argonauts, they had Gilbert Renfro, and then they had Danny Barrett.
Absolutely. And back in the 70s, like when Barnes and Holloway were starring, it was not uncommon to see rotations at quarterback. Even way back with the Argos, so when Joe Theismann came up here from Notre Dame, it was Greg Barton and Joe Theismann, and then it got into more, Tom Wilkinson and Bruce Lemmerman, and then Wilkinson and Warren Moon would play a half each. So, think about that on a team that would win 5 consecutive Grey Cups. Wilkinson would play a half, then Moon would play a half for quite a while. Jerry DiTilio and Sonny Wade. Tommy Clements and Condridge Holloway in Ottawa, and then
yeah.
Holloway and Barnes in Toronto. So it really, really was an era where, and maybe wrongfully so, but the coaches were pretty quick to make the switch. It didn't happen so much in the NFL, but up here it was commonplace.
Yeah, that's true. And like I said, I have to say, out of all the Grey Cups the Argos have won in my lifetime, I would say the '83 one is still the most special because it ended a 31-year drought.
Yeah, and you're a Minter fan, and Cedric Minter catching that pass from Joe Barnes and taking it into the end zone for the win. The town went crazy. I've often gone back, and when I was working in media, whether it be at TSN or the Fan, and would talk to some of the younger folk who couldn't figure out why I was such a CFL fan, I would show them, video of the parades through downtown Toronto. It wasn't the Raptors, like nothing close to the Raptors.
No,
Bay Street was packed, and the ticker tape coming down and confetti, and you couldn't get everybody into the square in front of Nathan Phillips Square in front of City Hall. It was a different beast, and go onto YouTube and look at 1983 East Final, and you'll see how packed Exhibition Stadium was. And we're with the Argos right now. We're trying to get back there. This year didn't help, obviously, with COVID, but we're trying to get back there and fill the stadium that's not quite on the same footprint as the old CNE. It kind of runs perpendicular, but some of the
pretty close. Yeah, I was going to say pretty close. What I was going to say, how I grew up to be an Argonaut fan, it wasn't because of the TV, because back then a lot of the CFL games were blacked out. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up listening to Bob Buratina and Pete Martin for many years on CFRB 1010. And that used to be like a big deal to me. It's like, okay, I can't watch them on TV. I'll listen to Bob and Pete on the radio, and even Bill Stevenson too. I think he was a sideline reporter too. And it was a big deal back then. And then when the Argos were on TV back then, it was like huge back then.
Yeah, Peter Martin and I had the opportunity to work for several years together, calling Argo games and some university games as well. And man, what a great teacher! Not only kind of showing me the ropes, what it's like to travel within the CFL, and he knew all the good spots to go in different road cities. But to just sit back, and whether it was after a game or in the broadcast booth, 4 hours beforehand, just kind of going over X's and O's and talking about strengths and weaknesses. Or every once in a while, Pete would get out the pen and diagram a play and why he thought it would work. And, if you're willing to be a sponge around guys like that, and Chris Schultz and Jeff Johnson and Sandy Annunziata and Adrian Smith, the other guys I worked with on Argo games, you're an idiot not to do that, because you're going to learn a lot.
But I was going to say, before I start asking a few questions, I just want to give a shout out to my friend Art Ragnar, who works for the Detroit Red Wings, and he's with WDFN in Detroit a long time, and he's a huge Argos fan in Detroit. And guess how he became an Argos fan? He used to watch the games on Channel 9 in Windsor, across the border in Detroit.
Beautiful. And it's like that. It's like that in a lot of border cities, whether it be Buffalo or Watertown, New York, or places along the border that would get those Canadian broadcasts. And I'm sure it was the same way out west. But I grew up in Kingston. We'd get Syracuse and Watertown stations, and they would be able to pick up the Kingston station or Ottawa station. So there was a little bit of a crossover. And I'm sure football fans, especially in the summer when they weren't getting NFL games, and in an era where there wasn't, say, a USFL playing spring football, I'm sure a lot of fans were won over by the brand of football.
Yes, and one of the guys they interviewed, Bob Sochi, who's the voice of the Patriots, he even mentioned he watched the Leafs on CBC through Kingston, and he also watched the CFL as well. And Bob Sochi is one of the nicest. If you ever get a chance to talk to Bob Sochi, one of the nicest guys. He treated me like I was I've known him for years.
Beautiful. That doesn't surprise me. The amount of guys that I've met who have done play-by-play in many different sports, there aren't too many idiots, because I think we realize when you do play-by-play, it's the best job in the world. And just to have an ego while you do that just doesn't make any sense at all, because you're getting paid to do something you love.
Like I said, everybody that's come on my show has been really great, and I try to ask good questions, and I try to learn from each guest.
So far, so good. Keep it going.
Okay. All right, no problem. I just got a few questions I was going to ask you. The first one I was going to ask you, Mike, can you just tell us, my audience, just a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm born in Kingston, Ontario, the great city that is. And from the time I was a little kid, as far as I can remember, I wanted to get into radio. I was the kind of guy that would have the old school transistor radio under my pillow at night, listening to play-by-play from different cities and Boston and Cincinnati and St. Louis, the big stations in the States that would come in at night, and you'd be twisting the dial just enough, trying to hope that, the climate was right and you're able to get that station and listen to the game that maybe you wanted to. And I probably listened to Dave Van Horn and Duke Snyder do Expo games. I probably listened to their voice more than I listened to my parents in my teens. Just absolutely a huge Expo fan, and baseball was my first love. More and more after I started playing football in high school and basketball as well, I really hearkened to those sports, but played everything as a kid growing up. Was able to work in radio. I bounced around a little bit. Was, in terms of the major markets, was a day one guy at the Fan 590 in Toronto. Was there for 18 years and change, and then was a day one guy at TSN 1050 radio in Toronto. And a couple of years ago, moved over after some discussions and got into the communications department with the Toronto Argonauts, and was bumped up to manager, and I love it. I absolutely love what I do. Kid in a candy store.
It's and like I said, I'm not quite 49, but I'm trying to switch careers because this is something I have a passion for. And like I said, I know I have to work hard and stuff like that, but this is something I really want to do, and I don't. And it's not necessarily I want to do it for the money. It's just sports is something I like to do, and I love to talk to people.
My dad had the best advice he ever gave me about anything was about work, and he said, I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care if you park cars. I don't care if you're a neurosurgeon, but you have to love what you do. And if you can do that, if you can find a way to love what you do. My dad worked on a passenger ferry in Kingston. He was a captain of the Wolf Islander. He was out on the carriers, the freighters on the Great Lakes forever before I came along, and he wanted to move a little bit closer to home. He worked on Thousand Island tour boats. He piloted those around the Thousand Islands on the St. Lawrence River, and he loved it. He absolutely was passionate about it. Until the day he died, he was still working. He was a maritime historian of fairly good renown in the Kingston area. Knew the Great Lakes like the back of his hand, and literally knew every nook and cranny of the St. Lawrence River from working the old cargo ships back in the 40s. He would be up at the front of the boat, steering the boat essentially, by letting the guy who's actually behind the steering wheel, know where to go, and was kind of going this way. He knew where everything was. So he was a remarkable man. And just the fact that I was able to work in radio so long, and I had been kind of sniffing around the last few years trying to get a full-time job in football, and this one opened up. And I've what's the line? You've never worked a day in your life, you're happy, and that's the way I feel, because I really love both careers that I've had.
Well, and like I said, I had some. I got a taste of broadcasting a couple years ago with the Guelph Nighthawks of the CBL. They threw me on a camera, which I'd never done before in my life. And the producer Kirk, who's one of my friends on here, said I did a good job. They even paid me, which I didn't expect. And they said, if you really want to get into broadcasting, to volunteer with Rogers TV. And I was doing that for a while until COVID struck. So I'm hoping to get back to Rogers TV.
If you want to do it, you will. I mean, I did the same thing when I was in Ottawa. I always had that urge to try play-by-play. And I was working at a radio station. I was doing mostly news and keeping my hand in sports, and kind of covering the Rough Riders and on game day and stuff like that. And I heard about a potential job opening with the Ottawa 67s to do their local cable broadcast. And I volunteered, and it was Friday nights, and I did as often as I could, and I don't think I missed an assignment. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and kind of knew then that if I could ever get another opportunity to do play-by-play in any sport, I would do it. I think I sucked as a hockey play-by-play guy, but I was able to learn some of the nuances that I would be able to carry into other sports, and doing football or basketball or whatever sport I was doing for OUA coverage, or in the CFL, or just anything they would throw at me. You learn and you just keep going.
Okay. My next question is, when did you know, I guess earlier in life, that you wanted to pursue a career in broadcasting media? Did you know right away, or was it a bit later on in life?
There was a get together on Facebook. It was kids who had gone to the public school together. And a girl said, "I think it's remarkable that you've done this, because I can remember you in grade 2 saying you wanted to be in sports radio and just be a sports journalist or newspaper writer or just anything to cover sports." So the fact that I was able to do it, I literally knew what I wanted to do from day one. And there were a couple of fallbacks, but yeah, I was absolutely a radio guy. I knew what I wanted to do.
Well, and this is what I like too. As much as I love the TV aspect of it, the radio aspect is something I grew up with, and something I would really, I think I would like to do for a career if I'm lucky enough to do so.
Yeah, just keep if you want to do it and you think you're progressing, just keep doing it. And if you have a talent at it, get tapes out there, and somebody's going to find you eventually.
Well, and I'm lucky too, with social media and technology nowadays. I can do my own podcast from my own basement. So it's just, I'm very lucky to have this opportunity.
Beautiful. And just like I say, it's the best thing that you can do is be very critical of yourself, because if you can't be, you're never going to get any better. So, you listen to different broadcasters and people doing play-by-play, and you go, "Oh, I like what he does, but I don't like what he does there." Or and take the best things that you like as a listener, and don't copy them verbatim, but just say, "Okay, I understand why that works," and "Okay, I get that," and just kind of understand where people are coming from when they're doing play-by-play. I still do that. I'll hear somebody do something on a radio play-by-play broadcast, no matter the sport, and say, "Oh, maybe I like what he just did." Maybe that's something I can incorporate, and think about how to incorporate that over the course of a broadcast.
Okay, definitely. My next question I was going to ask you is, what college university did you attend?
I went to Loyalist College in Belleville. It had a tremendously well-respected broadcast journalism program and a radio broadcast program as well. And I got into the radio program and had some spectacular teachers, and it was the best thing I ever did. And literally, 35 years into broadcasting, I would still think every day about some of the fundamentals that I learned at Loyalist College. Literally every day, I would take stuff that I learned at Loyalist from Brian Olney, Phil Ross, and Larry Glover specifically, and take what they taught me, and it would translate into what I did every single day. So, if you listen to teachers when you get into broadcasting or whatever course you're taking, and are able to take the fundamentals from somebody and be able to take that and apply it in everyday life, you're way ahead of the game, especially when you have great teachers. And I'm going to be really rude, but my dog is going crazy upstairs. Can you give me 10 seconds to let him out?
Yep. No worries, Mike. No worries. Anyways, guys, Mike will be back just shortly. Like I said, he's a dog owner, and his dog, when that dog has to go to the bathroom, they have to go to the bathroom. So anyways, I hope you get.
Sorry about that.
No worries about it. I love
really rude, but my dog was going crazy up there.
I love dogs. I've always had dogs, and I miss actually having one. Mine passed away 2 years ago from oral cancer. So eventually, I will get another dog. It's just they're like your best friends. They're like your buddy.
And see, you just got a good lesson in broadcasting on how to ad-lib for 15 seconds while I had to run out in the middle of an interview. Really rude, but I didn't want to have a stain on the floor.
Oh, no, totally understand. And sometimes even with Rogers TV, with the Guelph Storm home games, things happen in the middle of a broadcasting. You just have to always expect the unexpected in a radio or a television production.
Absolutely. I felt like when I grew up in an era where there were bench clearing brawls in hockey.
Mm-hmm. I remember. I
never had to call one, but I had to cover some. And it's one of the things that turned me against fighting in hockey, because it's like, okay, this is stupid. This is really dumb at this point. Like, why are there 20 guys paired off against 20 guys, and the game hasn't even started yet. And there was one when I was working in Kingston. There was one I think it was a New Year's Day game in Belleville, and the two teams hated each other. It remains still one of the most heated rivalries I can remember as even a fan or anybody covering. And they got into it, cleared the ice. This is before the game started. And then as soon as they're getting the last couple of guys off, they got at it again, and everybody came back out of the locker rooms or the dressing room. So you had two bench clearing brawls, essentially line brawls, before the game started. Just ridiculous, just dumb.
Well, hockey has changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
Like I said, they've pretty well eliminated the brawls. They've pretty well eliminated fighting. The only thing I do miss in the game that they've sort of eliminated too is the odd good body check. I used to love seeing Scott Stevens and Al McInnes when they were in the OHL with Kitchener lay guys out. But nowadays there's not as much body contact.
As long as they're not headshots, I'm great with it. I mean, hockey
Yes.
is a contact sport. There's no question about it, and it should be. You know that you know when you hear about people, you know, you watch the Leafs right now, and it's go 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 on high tempo, but you listen to people say, what do they need? And you know, even Joe Bowen, who you have experience with, you know, Bonesy says, I wish they had a little bit more physicality right now, and you know, there's still that element. I don't think you'll ever be able to take that completely out of hockey, because there's that, you can really turn the tempo of a game with a big body check, or just, you know, being so physical on the forecheck and disrupting what other teams want to do. I'm still a big proponent of physical hockey. I just don't like fighting.
Or the cheap headshots.
Exactly.
I totally agree with you there. And Scott Stevens did have a few cheap shots over his careers.
Man.
No,
so, but in the day, they weren't cheap shots.
No, that's true. That's a good point. Good point. My next question, Mike, did you have a mentor when you were first starting out in the industry?
I probably the first one was a guy I mentioned right off the top, a guy named Brian Olney. Brian was the headmaster at Loyalist College in terms of the radio program. I went up to him early on in first year, and I sat in his office and I said, Brian, please don't take this disrespectfully. I don't care if I get a diploma or not. I want to get a job. And he kind of looked at me and he went, okay, I get where this guy's coming from. All I wanted to do was be able to fine tune my skills. I didn't care if I got, you know, whatever credit in you know, the technical side of radio. I just wanted to hone my craft. And he was very good listener, and he pointed me in the right directions in a lot of areas. And you know, a guy later on named Tony Orr is for a long time at Kingston, was the news director at CKLC, and then you know, some of the subsequent rock stations in town. But you know, he built up my confidence when I needed it. It was my second job in the industry. I'd worked for CKWS for 4 years, got fired there. He hired me almost immediately. There wasn't even really a job for him, but he liked what I did on the air, knew I was a decent guy, and said, come on in. And he built up my confidence again. Really helped me there. So there have been a lot, but you know, at an early stage, I think the mentoring is even more important. Nelson Millman was a program director at the Fan 590 for 100 years when I was there. And, you know, if I ever bounced an idea off him, he was more than receptive, because I think he liked talking radio as opposed to, you know, talking about budgets and stuff like that, which most program directors end up doing more than the actual programming. So, you know, he was really good as well.
I was going to say, and I enjoyed listening to you on the Fan over the years with the bullpen. You still are very professional, and you don't talk down to your listeners. You always talk to them like they were your friends. Like, everybody's got a different style, but I definitely enjoyed your style with the bullpen on the Fan 590 over the years.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think my sort of mindset around a radio show is, if you leave listening to a segment or two or an extended period of time, and you feel like you've just been sitting down listening to two guys talk sports at a bar, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make it very casual, very, you know, formal when it had to be. I wasn't a guy who was going to yell very often. I think I did a few times just for effect more than anything else. or if somebody was really stupid and I wanted to scare them away from ever coming back onto the radio station. But for the most part, it's okay. You've got an opinion. It might be different than mine, but let you make your case. I'll make my case, and let's go. If we have a debate, we'll make it civil. And I just there's a lot of sports radio I don't like right now because it's I think it's clicks over credibility, and guys will just say outrageous things to try and get more listeners, which I guess is the bottom line. But I don't respect the way that a lot of them do it, and that's too bad. I'm more of a let's just get. I want to learn something from the host, not be. I never want to be smarter than the guy I'm listening to.
And I've had a few other people that Freddie Coleman from ESPN Radio came on a while ago, and he said exactly the same thing you just said now.
Freddie is my favorite radio. That doesn't surprise me that he would have that approach. Freddie is my favorite sports talk show host right now.
Oh,
I don't think it's close. I really respect the way that he respects the sports. He's got an opinion. He does it in a light manner. He incorporates music into his show. He's very good on social media talking to listeners. I think that's fantastic. And I don't know anybody who ever goes, Freddie Coleman, he's a jerk. I mean, that's just not his persona. And it sounds like it's like it's just being him honest on the air. And that's what I want. I want somebody who's authentic and who's being as honest with me as a listener as I am, by giving my time to them to be entertained or informed. I just think Freddie Coleman's the best guy right now on sports radio.
Yeah, the thing with Freddie is I could talk to him for hours and hours because, like I said, he's such a nice guy. But he knows the sports, but he also listens to what you say as well. So
yeah, absolutely, no question. And that's why I'm attracted to him as a listener because he's got this. I can tell he's got the same MO as a broadcaster that I had when I was one, and I respect that. And that's what I as a listener want to hear.
Definitely. And I'm going to have him back on my podcast probably in the next month or so, depending on his schedule. And it's like I said, everybody in your profession, Mike, has been really awesome with me. And it just makes me want to keep getting better and better at this. And I really enjoy doing this. This is like me getting back on the field and playing sports again.
You know how you get better and better at it? You keep doing it. You make mistakes. I'll listen back. If you were to listen to me the first couple of years at the Fan and then the last couple of years at the Fan, it would probably sound like a completely different broadcaster. As I got older, my voice got even a little bit deeper. You lose some of the upper registry. And I would just hope that my questioning got better. My interplay with fans got better because I was doing it every day for 25 years in this market. You would hope you better get better if you're doing something that long. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to have 1,000 guests on. And when you listen back and view back, don't be afraid to be critical and think, why did I ask that question? Why did I ask it that way? Why, when he said that, why didn't I follow up this way? Because the best tool you have as a broadcaster, listening.
Definitely. And what I do, Mike, is after each show and that I like to rewatch them again, like you said, and see what I liked and what that question so it's a learning. For me, it's still a lot of learning, but exactly what you said is what I try to do after each podcast here.
Good, perfect. That's the only way to learn. And it's like anything else. It's, you listen to a pro football player. What do they need? They need reps. And what does a broadcaster need? He needs reps.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The more you can get, the better you're going to be.
Yeah, I've been doing this now for 11 months, twice a week, consistently. So I try to be as consistent as I can on here.
Okay, go back. When you finish this mess with me, go back and listen to one of your first ones. And listen to them right after one another. Listen to the one with me, and then go back and listen to maybe your third one. And you tell me, and be honest with yourself, how you've changed as a broadcaster. And I'll bet you will find that you're a lot better just doing, a couple of weeks for that long. You're bound to get better.
And like I said, for a while there, I was having trouble getting guests on, but I'd say the last 4 or 5 months, I just ask people nicely. I tell them what I'm doing, and everybody's been great. And it's like now, it's like I'm very lucky, and just people have been wanting to come on to talk to me, and that's really great because, like I said, I'm just trying to gain experience interviewing people.
Well, I think when you get to a certain age, especially as a broadcaster, it's time to kind of pass the baton along to the next generation of people who want to do it. And I think you should be. It's the same thing in any sport. If you're a 35-year-old pitcher, you should be there helping the 22-year-old who's trying to steal your job, but you still should be there trying to help him out and get to that next level. And when I see being around the Argos every day, when I see a wide receiver who's been in the league for 10 years, helping out a guy who's in his first year, I think, okay, there's a guy who gets it. He's not worried. He's confident in his own job, that he's not afraid to help somebody else get better, help the team, and hopefully get to the point where you can be a 10-year vet and helping that next generation guy.
I guess it's what you're saying is basically pay it forward. If I'm fortunate enough to make it in this industry, I'm definitely going to do what you, John Murphy, Bob Sochi, Freddie Coleman, Christine Lacey, a lot of people have done for me, and try to pass it on.
Well, I'm honored to be in that group because that's a pretty impressive group you just read.
Well, I've been very lucky. I just like I said, I ask people nicely. I tell them what I'm about, and they come back and tell me their schedule, and they want to come on with me. And I've taken your advice and others as well. Just be yourself. Don't try to be somebody that you're not.
Why would you? I know a lot of people have done that and been very successful doing that. I couldn't do that. I'm not smart enough to do that. Just go on and be yourself. It's the easiest thing to do. Be true to yourself, and you don't have to be true to anybody else.
Definitely. Just a couple more questions, Mike. The next one I was going to ask you, your first TV radio jobs.
I was hired when I was 19 years old. I was a year and a half. Actually, it was the end of my first year in college. And a part-time job came open for a sportscaster at CKWS Radio in Kingston, my hometown. So that made it really easy because I could stay with my parents while I was going to college and not have to worry about where I'm going to find accommodation in a strange city to go and work. And a guy that I went to school with, he was in second year when I was in first year, became a very good friend, a guy named Mark Roberts. Mark got a job in Saskatchewan, and that opened up the job at CKWS. He recommended me for it. I went in, I gave my audition tape. Back in the day, hand in a cassette tape with a couple of sportscasts on it, and had an interview, and the guy hired me, and I ended up being at CKWS for 4 years, starting just doing sports on the weekends and then doing news on radio and television. And that was the first job. 4 years, I think it was actually my 4th anniversary to the day that I got fired. So the first of many.
Anyways, like I said, that's another question I was gonna ask you too. What was it like being hired and working on the Fan 590 for many years?
It was thrilling because when I was hired, it wasn't an all sports radio station yet. They had just gone mostly sports. It was in March of '93 and March of '92. And I had worked in the market previously. I'd been doing some stuff at CFTR, was doing some stuff in Barrie, and heard about this job, called, and the program director named Alan Davis said, come on in, we're looking for some people. He essentially hired me immediately to do updates. And so I was doing news and sports updates, which is something I had done basically at every radio station I had worked for, because I was lucky enough to know news and know sports, and be able to, BS my way through both of those. And so I started doing that. The entire program was music of your grandfather's life, oldies, before 6 o'clock. Then Bob McCowan would come on and do primetime sports, and then Dan Schulman would do the evening show. Barb DeJulia was in there. I was in there doing some updates. And then when we went all sports in September of '92, that's when I took over the evening job, and I was a host kind of full time after that.
And that was a great time to start out, because the Blue Jays were about to win back-to-back World Series, '92 and '93.
And the Leafs, that was just after the Gilmore trade, and they made it to the Final Four of those 2 years, and with Wendell Clark and the Gretzky playoff and the high stick, and the Argos had just won a Grey Cup with Rocket Ismail in '91, and You know, the Raptors weren't there yet, but it was a pretty remarkable time to be starting an all sports radio station. And it was a novel approach because I think the Fan 1430 at the time, I think we were the number 6 overall radio station in terms of like the 6th ever all sports radio station in North America. I think it was the Fan in New York.
Yeah.
There was one in Chicago, one in Seattle. There was Extra in San Diego.
What about Detroit? WDFN in Detroit.
I think they came on after us. I think the Fan in Detroit, because that was great. You know, Jamie Samuelson and the crew down the late Jamie Samuelson and the crew down there. You know, I think they came a little bit after. Jamie came on my show a lot, and I was on shows in Detroit, not on a regular basis, but every once in a while. And man, it was a neat time though. But when we started at the Fan 1430, there was just nobody else doing it. So we couldn't steal from anybody because we couldn't listen to anybody else. You know, it was like, how do we do this? And I think to a large extent, when I started hosting on the weekends, if you listen to the Fan in Toronto or now TSN in Toronto, compared to any other radio station, all sports, we do more interviews than we do open line. And I think that's because McCowan hated doing phones, Shulman hated doing phones, I hated doing phones, and we'd rather do interviews.
Yeah.
So it kind of was incumbent upon us to do good interviews so we could continue that. And then when they went all sports, it kind of continued. Although for a long time I did an hour of open line, and it's not like I didn't like talking to fans. But sometimes when there wasn't a lot to talk about and coming up with some topics to try and generate phone calls, sometimes that was tough sledding. But, you know, I enjoy talking to callers, but sometimes it could be a bit of a grind. And I thought I was a better interviewer than an open line host. So I thought I would rather play to my strength.
Well, I'll be honest, my first couple months, my shows, I basically was talking the whole time and I enjoyed it. But ever since I started getting guests coming on to interview, I really enjoyed doing the interviewing part of this.
And that's great. I mean, I was always of the mindset that the listener would always be more interested in what the interview guest had to say than I did as the guy asking the questions.
Yeah.
But if I could kind of get my personality out by the way that I wanted a specific interview to go, you know, there's nothing accidental about a good interview. You've got a kind of a roadmap. But you've got to be able to, if the guy you're interviewing or girl you're interviewing decides to take a good detour, be ready to take that detour and follow along and let them drive. You know, just kind of make sure that the car stays on the road. That's a terrible analogy, I guess, but I hope you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. Are you okay for 3 more questions? Is that
Absolutely.
Okay? Okay, I just want to make sure. I always ask my guests because my show's 30 minutes live with CDP, but sometimes I go over the 30 minutes.
After me running out midway through the interview, it's the least I can do.
Okay, well, what kind of dog do you have?
I just coughed. So I have a Wheatzer. It's a Wheaton Terrier and mini Schnauzer combined. So it's kind of like a short Wheaton. He's 2.5. His name's Jack. Great dog. Best disposition. I'm a dog guy like you, and this dog has the best disposition of any dog I've ever been around. Just a happy dog all the time.
Yeah, I miss it. Like I said, hopefully I'll get a dog again. It's just dogs are always happy to see you, and it just especially when you come home from work or whatever you do, and it's just like I said, they're a part of your family.
Well, through this, I haven't been to work in over a year now. Mid-March, whenever everything got shut down a year ago. In fact, when we were at Chris Schultz's funeral, Pinball Clemens and I were sitting together. Mike's my boss, obviously, as the general manager, and I talked to him sometimes 5 to 10 times a week, right? Like we're constantly talking. And I looked at him. I said, "You know, I haven't seen you in a year, almost to the day." And it was like, it was just that realization because we've been on Zoom so much, because we've been on the phone so much. You know, so, you know, and where I was going with this is my wife is at work every day. She has to go into the office. I'm at home. I work at home every day. That dog has been a mental lifesaver for me. Just, you know, to have somebody around, and if I need to go and take him for a walk or go up and play with him for 15 minutes or so, that does more for me than it does for him. So, you know, we got him a couple of years ago, and I'm really thankful we did.
I totally agree with dogs or even people having cats. I'm more of a dog person than a cat person. Not that I'm against cats, but no, like I said, hopefully I'll have a dog again some point. My last dog was a Corgi Shepherd I adopted from
Nice.
the Gulf Humane Society. So I always
Oh, great.
like to try to adopt from animal shelters.
Great call.
Okay.
Absolute great call.
So, just a couple more questions. The next one I wanted to ask you, your favorite personality you've worked with over the years, and your favorite athlete or athletes you've interviewed so far, if you have a particular favorite one.
I have a bunch of favorites, and I'm not just saying this because of what happened 3 weeks ago, but Chris Schultz is the guy that I had more fun working with. You know, Don Landry was a great partner, or Mike Toth, or anybody that's kind of gone through that chair. Spider Jones, when we did boxing together, was a treat. But I can't explain chemistry, but it was really there every shift with Chris. We did the Football Friday / Football Sunday show for 15 years. Did some broadcasts together in the last 2 years of Argo games. There was just something about working with Chris that brought out the best in me, and I hope brought out the best in him. And we liked each other a great deal. Never had a heated conversation ever. Just a joy to be around. And in terms of interviewing people, the coolest thing I've ever done was interview my boyhood idol, and that was Hank Aaron. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah, he was my guy when I was a kid, and you know, not only from a baseball perspective, but it helped me when he was chasing Babe Ruth's record in '73. He'd break the record in April '74. But during 1973, a lot of stories came out about him getting letters from racists who didn't want a black man breaking Babe Ruth's records. And I saw some television news stories on this, and it led to a great discussion that I vividly remember with my dad about race. And you know, I'm lucky. I never had that gene where I thought about somebody based on the race or religion or whatever. I'll clean it up. But Bruce Springsteen once said in an interview, "There are nice guys and a-holes in every block. On every block. Why would you limit yourself, essentially, in who your friends are?" And I never understood why somebody would hate Hank Aaron, who seemed to be the nicest guy in the world and a great athlete. Why would they hate him just because he's black? And it led to a great conversation. And my dad was of the same mindset. You have the Tiger hat on. My dad was a Tigers fan before the Expos came along. His favorite Tiger became Willie Horton. And why was it Willie Horton? Because in the race riots in Detroit, Willie Horton thought he could calm things down by going into the middle of an intersection, standing on a car in his uniform. He went down after a game and talked people into going home and trying to get through this. And that's why he was my dad's favorite Tiger. And that came up in the discussion about Willie Mays. This was in '73. This is only 5 years after the Detroit race riots. And you know, it meant a lot, and it's a conversation that was so vital to me and so vibrant that I can remember where I was. I remember everything about it. You know, 1973 is how long ago? I don't want to do math, but it was a hell of a long time ago.
40,
and you told
48
me
years.
no math. But you know, interviewing Hank Aaron was just incredible to me on a personal level.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, he's still the home run king. As far
Absolutely.
as I'm concerned, that other guy, I don't even want to mention his name.
Good.
Definitely. Next question I was going to ask you, Mike. You could actually write a book one day about your career in sports, and I would buy it because you got so many stories you have to share.
A lot of people have asked me, and I have no idea what the hell I'd write about. You know, it would be easier for me if I had the recordings of all of these, right? And I could go back and say, in the interview, Hank Aaron told me, and put it in quotes, as opposed to me having to make up the quote, because I would never ever want to put somebody out of context and put their words. And you know, people said you should write a book about the Argos or the CFL. And I'm thinking, well, what the hell would I write about that hasn't been written about already? And I would never ever ever want to make me the subject of the book. That's just that would make me uncomfortable. I think I could tell some decent stories, but at the same time, you know, who would buy it? other than you.
That's true. John Murphy actually said the same thing too, because John Murphy's been in Buffalo so long, and he's done color analyst with the Bills and then play-by-play. He
Yep.
said the same thing, and even Bob Sochi, in his short time with the Patriots, he's been with them since 2013. He's called 3 Super Bowl wins in 8 years and 4 Super Bowl trips. And I said, right there, your 8-year career, you could write a book or whatever. But he's the same thing as you guys about
Yeah,
writing
it's
a
just
book. So,
it's just if I had some more of those tapes, maybe I could put some of them together, but
yeah,
I don't, so I
yeah.
won't. And I'll keep the stories alive by telling them when somebody like you asks me about them.
Definitely. Speaking of the Tigers, Lou Whitaker, Alan Trammell, my 2 favorite players. Lou Whitaker should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, the Baseball Hall of Fame is political, and
Yeah,
I don't know why he still hasn't in there yet. He should have gone in with Trammell.
they should have gone in together. I agree.
Definitely,
There are some of those combinations in baseball. You can't think of somebody without the other one.
definitely.
And I had a little bit of affinity for the Tigers just because my dad did. I was never a Tigers fan per se. I'd vote for Mark Fidrich in the Hall of Fame. How's that? Just because I loved him. But Whitaker and Trammell just so long playing really difficult positions to stay healthy because
Hmm.
of the pivoting and the
Yep.
collisions, especially in the era that they played when there were some pretty hard takeouts
Oh
of guys
yes,
breaking up double plays. So the fact they
definitely.
were able to play together for so long at such a high level, I would not disagree with those two both getting in.
Yes, definitely. I was going to ask you my next question. What's it like being the radio voice of a storied franchise like the Toronto Argonauts over the years and working alongside, I guess, Pete Martin, Jeff Johnson, Adrian Smith, Sandy, and the late Chris Schultz?
Uh, Kid in a candy store every game. I probably embarrass my colleagues when I do it because I have to be there 4 hours before a game. I have to be. I have to go down. I have to take everything in. I'm stupidly overly prepared, and I'm getting the opportunity to talk about a game I love and watch them from a great vantage point. Travel with the team. We don't travel so much right now, but I get to do a little bit of traveling. I used to go to every game and talk about a game that I love, and I hope my enthusiasm for the sport comes through. But not only are Pete and Pee Wee and Sandy and JJ and Schultze, they're all friends and still are. I don't see Adrian very much, but the other I talk to Pete often, talk to Sandy every once in a while, JJ every once in a while, but I've been blessed to have guys I really love as broadcasters. I'm doing something I never ever would have imagined myself doing, and even in at Loyalist College, just never ever thought this job would become available. And the fact I've done it for 15 seasons is just I'm blessed. I'm stealing money. I have no idea why the hell I'm still doing it, but I'm thankful I am.
Well, I think you're great at it. And my 2 favorite guys are Bob Bertina. I know he ended up going with the Tiger Cats, but to me, hearing his voice and then hearing your voice, you identify with the team.
Well, Pete Martin has been able to survive both of us, so
Yes.
he should get a medal. There should be a special place in heaven for Pete Martin for surviving both Bertina and me.
Definitely, yeah. And like I said, I've always been a radio guy, and I will be for many more years. So,
I'm with
um,
you.
not that I'm against TV guys, by the way. I do have a lot of respect for them too, but I think to me, radio is more of my passion than TV is.
It's the theater of the mind. A good broadcaster can paint such a beautiful picture, and I've borrowed from some of the best, and always tried to remind myself that the person who's listening can't see anything
Yeah,
unless they bring in a radio to the game, or listening on their phone, or doing what some people do is they try to sync up the radio broadcast and the TV broadcast. But I thinking of the poor guy in his car who's driving and wants to be at the game. So that's why I'll say, the Argos wearing dark blue, moving from left to right here in the first quarter, trying to describe the wind conditions, and try to paint that picture, which you don't have to do on television.
no,
I remember Chris Cuthbert did a radio game, or it was Rod. It was it was Rod Black who had called a Grey Cup when Chris was doing it on TV, and Rod came in, who's so good at calling the games on TV. And I saw him afterwards. He goes, "Hogue, what you do is so much harder than what I do. So he was very aware of trying to do all the intricacies and making sure before every play, 3rd and 6 from the 29-yard line, 2nd and 4 from the 18, you have to let the listener know before the play, because you don't have to do that on television because you can see it.
With the
You got the
graphics,
little
yes.
bug, and you've got the score, and you have to be aware of telling the score all the time.
Definitely. So, just 2 more questions, Mike. This next one I wanted to ask you. I had to ask you. Thoughts of a 2021 CFL season, hopefully, and all the roster changes and the new coaching staff with the Argos. I know most of that took place after the 2019 season, but I just wanted to get your opinion on this.
Well, we're hopeful. I think everybody's extremely hopeful and confident that we're going to play this year. How many games? That's the question. I read a story last week or earlier this week that said, the people are hopeful we'll get a whole 18 in, and I would love that. Do we get 16 in, 14 in? Do we start at Labor Day? I don't know. That's way above my pay grade. I just know everybody's very hopeful and confident and excited about getting back on the field this year, because boy, did we miss it last year.
Oh yeah.
February was unbelievable. What Pinball Clemens and John Murphy, our general manager and vice president of player personnel, did. I write bios for the website, and we have 75 new players. So I was busy. But every day it would be, Vince Magri, who was kind of the conduit. He's the head of Canadian scouting and sort of the third guy on that executive team. He'd be texting me saying, okay, here are the guys that we signed today. And I'd have to write bios on them. And it would be, we got him, we're going after him, we got him. And it was just this nonstop deluge of star CFL players or NCAA players or former NFL players with high profile, guys who can play. And I'm looking at the roster, and I sat down with every once in a while, I'll sit down with somebody on the staff and go, look at our team. Like, compared to 2019, like, you don't win on paper. But
No.
When you compare our final roster in 2019 to what we have now, it's totally different. And hopefully totally better than the 4 and 14s we rolled out the last couple of years. So we're really, really, really exceptionally excited. And as far as the coaching staff, Ryan Dinwiddie, man, what a pleasure to be around. And the rest of the coaching staff, Jarius Jackson, back in Toronto, he was a player here on the 2012 team. He was a quarterback, Ricky's backup, threw a touchdown pass in the Grey Cup. A lot of people forget that. He's back as the offensive coordinator. Glenn Young, who played here as well, he's a Scarborough guy, came up to Canada and played for the Argos after he played a handful of years in the NFL. He was an All-American at Syracuse. He's the defensive coordinator coming over from Winnipeg. All of the coaches that we brought in, I'm excited. Some I know, some I don't. I've gotten to know over Zoom meetings or the occasional phone call. But on a scale of 1 to 20, I'm at about a 726 to get this season started, and just pumped. I can't wait till we play Hamilton. I just can't wait. Because they're the beast, right? They're the beast in the East. They got the crown. We want to steal it from them.
I was going to actually say that to you. The 2 preseason games against Hamilton and the 2 first regular season games against Hamilton, that's going to build up a hatred. I think that's what this rivalry needs again, is a hatred like they had in the 70s and 80s.
Agreed. Especially. And then we got them Labor Day and the week after that, and then hopefully we get them in the East Final.
Definitely. Like I said, I also was reading today on Third Down Nation. Apparently, I guess the owners basically want to try to negotiate with the CFL Players Association that when there's no fans in the stands, to see if they'll take a 20% pay cut and then pay them when fans are allowed back in the stands.
I have not. I read the story. I have not heard that from within our organization. So I'm not comment on it because I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. So I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm not going to make something up, and I'm not going to try to spin something because I honestly don't know any more than you did. You do by you reading the story.
Okay. No worries. Like I said, I'm just hoping there will be a season and that. But one question I was going to ask you, what do you think? I don't know if this would happen. Do you think they should have a third preseason game based on not having that, they haven't played in a year. Do you think the CFL should consider maybe adding a third preseason game to give the
No,
coaches a
I
little
don't
more?
think
No,
so.
no.
The preseason games at this stage, none of the veterans start. I think it might benefit us because we have so many, but we have, Charleston Hughes is in his late 30s, mid late 30s now. So you don't want to have him roll out every game. You don't want to increase the opportunity for a guy to get hurt.
Okay.
You see guys go down in training camp just on one-on-one drills, and that's bad enough. I think preseason games allow guys who have not played in the CFL to get a look at the game at full speed. So some of the new guys, like, Martavis Bryant comes up here from the Steelers. He's not seen the CFL at full speed. He's going to see practice and guys going hard. Game is a different thing. So, maybe to indoctrinate, I don't think you need 3 games for that. And it's a tough enough sell. You don't want to go to the well too often with your season ticket holders, and nobody really likes preseason football. Like, it's a reason to get together. Once is enough. I think 4 in the NFL is too many. I just do. You don't need 4 preseason games. I think 2's probably the right number.
Too. Okay, no, I just wanted to ask you about that, Mike, because I know the coaches kind of like it, so they could evaluate players and stuff like that. I know
Coaches love it until one of their guys gets hurt in one of those preseason games.
That's true. That is so true. And and that's not a way you want to start your season, having a key member out with an injury for the year before it starts. So
exactly. So yeah, 2's enough.
Okay, definitely. And my last question I was going to ask you, Mike, any advice for those interested in a career in broadcasting, media, radio, play-by-play, not just by myself, but anybody watching tonight that's looking to get into this industry?
You better love it. You better love it. You better be able to sacrifice, especially now. The sad thing about now is there are fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer jobs in mainstream media, traditional media. Develop a podcast. You're doing the right way. I mean, in this era, to get better for a guy like me, I was able to hone my craft in Kingston and then move to Ottawa, a bigger market, and then move to Toronto and then get a better job in Toronto. And there was a natural progression. There are very few starter jobs. You can't go to a small station anymore and learn because people aren't even turning over in the small stations. If they get a job in Trenton, they're staying in Trenton. Because there aren't the amount of jobs at the next level, and with syndication being run not only in talk radio but in music radio, fewer and fewer jobs. So you better love it. You better love what you do, and you better have a plan B. Just because there have been so many people that I've worked with and have been in the industry with, even though we might not have worked together, that I've seen let go in the last 5 years. A sports hall of fame in terms of broadcasting, and it doesn't matter anymore. It just doesn't matter. Everything is run by the corner office, and as soon as you get good and start making enough money, they'll probably get rid of you. It's a sad state, but there's not much local radio even in the major market stations. So it's really depressing for a guy like you who loves radio, and I just love local radio, and maybe I'm old school, but I think the key to any talk radio station is being local all the time. And especially in a market where Leafs are playing well and the Raptors aren't, tell me there's not enough storylines to fill up a day with those two teams. And the Blue Jays starting, and the Argos starting, and TFC starting, and it's a perfect opportunity to go all local all the time. But what do I know? I just worked in the industry for 35 years.
I was going to say, I know the road's not going to be easy for me, but this is something I really want to pursue. And I just have to, like I said, hopefully I can get into Conestoga College or radio broadcast and just try to learn as much as I can from them and just keep working at what I'm doing.
It's the only way to get better. Keep doing what you're doing and
Definitely.
Be willing to learn from your mistakes, because if you've only been doing this for a year, you're going to make them. I didn't pick up many in this one. This was a really solid broadcast. I thought you did a great job, but don't be afraid to go back and listen to it and be overly critical, because it's the only way you're going to get better.
Totally agree with you, Mike. I was going to say thank you so much for coming on. Oh, before I let you go, where'd you get that sign from? I like that sign behind you. Cold beer.
This usually goes outside, and we bring it in for the winter. We bought that in Myrtle Beach. My wife's sister and her husband every 2 or 3 years get a spot down there for the month, and we'll go down and spend a week down there. So I saw this and said, we need this for the backyard. So I put some of the furniture out last weekend. I'm going to do the rest this weekend. That sign will not be there on Monday. It will be outside where it belongs.
Because now I have a craving for a cold beer just seeing that sign in the background.
Good call. I
Okay.
drove you to drink.
I can only have one anyways. But Mike, I was going to say, I'm hoping maybe in the future you might be able to come back on again and talk about the 2021 Toronto Argonauts and hopefully another Grey Cup victory this year.
I like the sound of both. I'd love to come on again, and I love the fact that you think that we have a shot at the Grey Cup. We have a 1 in 9 chance, put it that way.
Definitely. And the last time the Grey Cup was in Hamilton, 1996, the snowstorm against Edmonton.
Best Grey Cup game ever played. I think there were 9 lead changes in the first half.
I would say that one. And then, unfortunately, the 87 one, I still would put up there too. Yep. With the Eskimos. That was a great Cup, even though we lost on a last-second Jerry Corrick field goal.
Jerry freaking Corrick.
Yeah.
Windsor native, wasn't he? I think he was from Windsor.
I'm not sure about that, but I know that 87 team that was so close to winning it. And then I think the one team that I really thought should have won a Grey Cup that never did was the 88 team. I just don't know what they ran into Winnipeg in the East Final at Exhibition Stadium, and they just did not have a good game.
Those teams, the 1990 team may have been better than the 1991 team, just from an offensive perspective. It was incredible, putting up 70 points in a game, 50 points in a game, 60 points in a game. The offense was just crazy good, but they never won. So that era with Ricky Foggy and those guys at quarterback was just phenomenal. And then Matt Dunnigan came in and finally won one. And oddly enough, it was special teams and defense that won it in 91 because Matt played with a broken collarbone on his throwing shoulder. Figure that one out.
Well, and one of my social media friends, Damon Allen, I keep bugging him. I said, Damon, you're the last one to beat the Argos in a Grey Cup. That was 87.
That's right.
Yeah, 87. Yeah.
That's right. Pretty good run. 91, 96, 97, 04,
yes.
12,
6 in a row.
17.
Yeah, so Damon Allen he killed us with his scrambling in that 87 Grey Cup.
He sure did.
His scrambling ability. Did. So, but anyways, Mike, I'm going to let you go, but I want to say thank you so much for coming on my podcast, 30 Minutes Live with CDP. And before you go, just are you guys selling tickets right now? People can buy right now for the Argonauts?
Season tickets. Season tickets are for sale, and some people have jumped on board, just hopeful that they're able to go out and watch live sports again, and hopefully we're the first ones out of the gate. And I guess the Leafs are hopeful they'll be able to get some people in. But yeah, Argonauts.ca. Just go to the website and you'll be able to find ticketing there.
And I have it right on my ticker too. So
I saw that. You're the man.
I try to promote the CFL. I love the NFL. I love college football, but I love the CFL too. So
beautiful. Hope to see you at a game this year.
Definitely. I'd like to come down to at least a couple games. Hopefully, we'll cross our fingers.
We'll see you then. Thanks for asking me to do
Mike.
this.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night. Anyways, guys, I just want to say, Mike Hogan, thank you so much coming on my podcast, 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Mike is the manager of communications with the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL, and he's a longtime radio play-by-play voice of the Toronto Argonauts. So that was great talking to Mike. I could have talked to him for 2 hours. Like I said, my show is 30 Minutes Live with CDP, but sometimes I do go over an hour. So. But anyways, guys, I got trivia questions, 2 trivia questions before I call it a show. And they're both CFL based. The first trivia question is, which CFL team has won the most Grey Cups? That's the first question. And the second question is another one. Which CFL team has the longest current Grey Cup drought? I'll give you a clue. Winnipeg ended their 30-year drought, winning the Grey Cup in 2019 against Hamilton. Yeah. I'll give you guys a minute to answer these questions. And let's see, we got some comments on here. Mark Richardson, hi, Chris. Hi, Mark. How you doing? Thanks for watching. Trevor, hi, Chris. Thank you so much. And Mark Richardson, good show, fun guest. Thank you so much, Mark and Trevor, for watching. Like I said, guys, trivia question answers. So I'm going to do it again quickly, and then I'm going to call it a night. First, which CFL team has won the most Grey Cups? The answer would be the Toronto Argonauts have won 17 Grey Cups. So the first answer is Toronto Argonauts, 17-time Grey Cup champions. And the second trivia question is, which CFL team has the longest current Grey Cup drought? That would be the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They haven't won a Grey Cup since 1999. When they beat Calgary Stampeders back in 1999. So anyways, guys, like I said, thank you everybody for watching this show live or when you watch it later on. I do have a guest coming up on Saturday. Just 1 second. I'm just going to put her picture up here for you guys. She is originally from Sarnia and moved to the States when she was a child. But my next show is this Saturday at 9 o'clock on 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Stand-up comedian from California, Alana Turner, will be my guest. So yeah, this Saturday, March 27th at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 Pacific, stand-up comedian Lana Turner will be my special guest. So anyways, guys, and if anybody's interested in hopefully going to Argonauts game this year, check out their website, www.argonauts.ca. And like I said, guys, I'm going to close this up and we'll just finish this up. But I just want to say, everybody, thank you all for watching 30 Minutes Live with CDP tonight. And I hope you enjoyed my interview with Argos Radio play-by-play voice Mike Hogan and communications manager. Mike's had a 30-year broadcasting career in the Toronto area as well, and he's an extremely nice guy and stuff like that. So anyways, guys, yeah, like I said, we'll see you guys on Saturday night, 9 o'clock, with stand-up comedian Lana Turner from LA, California area on here, 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Take care, guys. Have a good night. Thanks for tuning in to 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Good night, guys. See you Saturday at 9.